Welcome to the Inner Champions podcast. Would you like to promote your business so the world can find you? If so, follow us at Inner Champions Podcast on Instagram. Lastly, follow our current sponsors Tees Enchanted Trinkets on Instagram and The Real Talk with Jordyn.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the Inner Champions podcast. On this main particular episode, we are going to discuss going with your gut in any given situation. I am talking about your feelings and how you feel about certain outcomes, ultimatums, etc. This could go for a player on a team. This could go for a coach, coaching a team. This could go in the business world of making an ultimate change in your life. What you assume might be the better, but then ultimately, when you come down to it and get down to it, unfortunately, it is not the best. It is not the best for your own interest. And for that, you have to go with your gut. And I have to say, for the 34 years of my life, potentially, I have gone with my gut most of the time, and it has never ever led me the wrong way. I'm going to go over some instances where I've gone with my gut and ultimately saw the writing on the wall a few months later. The most recent one that I want to come on here and discuss is back in 2025, around the month of October. I was in the process of finalizing a contract with an online radio station, and yes, I'm going to do my very best not to mention names, not to harm them in any way. I just wanted to come on here to voice my own opinion about a couple different instances that I ran into, not just with them, but some other platforms as well that I am supposed to, or was supposed to, help them create content and bring some livelihood to their platforms. But going back to going with your gut in general is just, if you're in a tough meeting, or if you're in a tough game, is, how can you adjust, or how can you deviate through that? And your gut, if you pay attention to your body in general, can communicate and tell you a lot of different things. So one of the other things that I went with my gut back in 2025, early on, I made a tough decision to stand up for myself, and it probably cost me in the long run. But not only did I stand up for myself, I also protected a player from one of the schools that I was working at, coaching at, volunteering at. And we're going to talk a little bit about that first, and then we'll branch off to some of the other topics that I want to bring up in this segment, in this episode of just going with your gut. So it was a warm Saturday afternoon as my newer team that I got asked to volunteer to be the head coach for. Ultimately, at the end of the day, as most of you might know or will find out fairly quickly, is that it was my ultimate dream job. This is something that I strived for years, for a very long time, that I feel like some of you or close family friends may have not thought that I would ever achieve. But I am so thankful to come on here and say that I was able to achieve that. But back to going with your gut, in this given situation, it was that Saturday morning. We were scrimmaging 4 different locations. I won't say the location where I was, just because I'm trying to keep everything as professional as humanly possible. But this was a big gut check for me. And when I say that is, we got, there, we played the game, did what we were supposed to do. But ultimately, in that game, in that situation, there was a big gut check for me. There was a occurrence where it was very warm on this Saturday, particularly about mid-morning, midday, mid-afternoon, early afternoon, somewhere in that ballpark. And the field conditions were okay, but the ultimate conditions of a young freshman program were not okay as far as some student athletes go. And as my objective as the head coach, as I was taught, as I thought I was taught the proper way, was to, be their, leader in a sense, but also be their protector at the same time. So I had the ultimate decision to make. Unfortunately, a kid had some symptoms of some kind of illness, wasn't looking right, and I made the ultimate decision to pull him, sit him out. He was not looking to par. I also did the proper protocol, met up with the opponent's training staff, and they also made the final decision on this person not being placed back into the game due to some illnesses and symptoms of some sicknesses that they were presenting. So we went along with the day and got through the day and everything like that. Returned to our home location after said scrimmage was complete. And then here is where a gut check for me happened. I reported it to who I was supposed to report to. And I thought, at the end of the day, these people would have my back and said, yeah, coach, you did the right call. Everything that you learned in your training videos to hold this position, you did right, you did appropriately. But I was unfortunately mistaken. Apparently, I guess wasn't supported, and I guess I just wasn't what I thought that they would support or protect me as a coach. They did not do. Ultimately, again, I sacrificed my volunteer position for this kid's life. I won't go into details. It's for the kid to do that, and they are not here to speak on their behalf. So I will not go into those kind of details. But ultimately, this school and this surrounding of upper authorities did not care about my ultimate life-saving decision. And that's okay. Let bygones be bygones. We go past. We learn from these mistakes. We learn from these gut checks. And that's just the first gut check that really opened the doors in my eyes on a lot of other people's, I guess, surrounding of situations. And you go back in time and you look at their, I guess, current history. The turnover ratio is unfortunately terrible at this known location, and it's just, the writing is on the wall. Ultimately, I am much better from that. Like I said, I learned from that. I took a lot of good nuggets as some of the new era of language goes around, and I, learned from that. I learned from my quote-unquote mistakes. There were a couple that I probably made. There were a couple that maybe, in a sense, some of you might assume that was pretty prideful, but at the ultimate day, I still felt that, and I still feel to this day, that I did the right decision. I made the right decision. I talked to some very high, not authoritative, well, I guess I could say authoritative people in my corner. And let's just take away from not just in my corner, but in the fact of that they weren't necessarily on my side. I wanted their neutral opinion. I gave them the scenario, and they ultimately said that they felt for where I was, what I was doing at a volunteer position, I ultimately did the right thing. And again, that's for you to decipher if I did or didn't. I'm not looking for people's opinions. Again, if you weren't there in the given days and given situation, then I really don't care about your thoughts or opinions. This is ultimately just a gut check, again, to give you a perspective of how to handle certain gut checks. That was gut check number one. And then I guess later on throughout the year, which kind of sparked this way of starting this podcast was a gut check, not allowing myself to go down quietly, not allowing myself not to give up, even through this really, really tough time. I ultimately, I guess, bounced back. And even when I was in a gut check, there was a potential new hire because that ultimate end of that 2025 season, the head coach of that program currently, or I shouldn't say currently, at the time was going through his own situations where he had to be let go for some other things. I'm not sure if that played a role into it. I'm assuming it did. I don't know. I was never told if it did or did not. But ultimately, I stayed positive. I stayed the course. I continued to do what I do. I continued to believe that, again, still to this day, I did the right decision. I went with my gut. I said what I said, and we're here today, and that's okay. But the newer head coach at the time that they had hired reached out to me and called me, and we had a discussion, and we went on with life like nothing ever happened. Explained my scenario of why I stepped away, And ultimately, of course, again, protected myself, gave them as much information as I felt that was humanly necessary. And if they wanted any more detailed information, they would seek upper, support from administration, and they would give him their side of the story, because on everything, in my opinion, there's two sides to every story. Ultimately, that did not play out for that particular situation. The individual, I think, ultimately tried to talk to them. They didn't give him any answers. But anyway, we're not going to get into all of what happened in between that time, because if I do, it'll just be a continuous episode of me whining and just voicing my own opinion that has been heard probably several times, but never been responded to. I'm still looking for answers. I'll probably never receive those answers. I just solely have to go with my gut, knowing what I did was proper, what I did was appropriate, and we're here today, and I'm here for it, and I accept it, and I have gotten stronger from it. It took me a long time. I was in a very, very, very dark place for quite some time, such is why this podcast is where it is today. And again, it's not about the numbers. It's not about how many people listen to it. It's about who can come across it and gather some valuable tips and tricks on how to go with your gut. And I know I haven't really got into how to go with your gut and kind of what I did in those situations. I just, again, you're your own person. You're your own, you're your own evaluator in these situations. So ultimately, I'm giving you some of what I had to go with my gut. But ultimately, I guess at the end of the day, the bigger picture of this is to just trust your gut in any given situation that you're in. So that wraps up that part of, going with your gut. And in the same year, as I created this podcast and pushed for it to be visible, for it to get to people, for people to want to listen to it, for people to just gravitate to it, with my, strength of positivity, pushing through the darkest times in my life. I don't ever think, to be completely truthful, and this is the first time I'm coming out with this, I have ever been put in a darker situation. Not because of who was right and who was wrong. It wasn't that. It wasn't that kind of power trip. It was the lack of communication in between administration, myself, and where this incident occurred. I was just looking for answers, because ultimately, at the end of the day, us as, paid coaches, volunteer coaches, or somewhere down the line, you get put in these situations where you have to take these courses of, heat stroke, cardiac arrest, concussion, and things like that. And I just wanted to ultimately get an answer of what I saw as far as the symptoms, from these courses of years that I've been taking them, and I've been coaching for, 18 plus years. So it mind boggled me that after all the trainings, after everything that I did, it wasn't enough apparently, or it was done wrong, or, and again, I'm leaving stuff out. I can't go into full detail of how this scenario, actually began from start to finish, because it would probably be a 2-hour episode. And again, you're not here to hear me whine and complain. I'm just here to give you the nuggets of kind of where I've had to go with my gut. And that basically wraps that part of it up. And then we're going to jump right into gut check number 2 of 2025 in the middle of October, or around that ballpark. And this was weeks before October. This particular podcast, I guess, reached a couple of different online radio stations. And as they say, some people have the face or voice for radio. However that saying may go, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But ultimately, I had some online radio stations hit me up. So with me saying I had these, online radio stations hit me up, like I said previous, they got a hold of listening to my Inner Champions podcast here, and they reached out and gave me the parameters of what they were looking for, what they wanted, what they thought I could bring to their platform. And in the beginning, as anything, everything sounded and looked to par. I did my inside research like I would do at everything. Even in coaching, you have to do your own kind of digging deep. I particularly digged as deep as I humanly could with this particular radio station. And ultimately, and again, this is another just a test your gut type of thing. I did what they asked in the early stages. I gave them some early, I guess, pre-record. Well, all of it was pre-recorded, but I gave them some, I guess, their own testing tools on how it would sound, what I would be like, my enthusiasm, my energy, my effort, all of the above in this particular evaluation process, let's call it. And again, all things leading up to it sounded great. But as I do and as I want you guys to learn and know, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Because again, you have to be able to just go through these motions and you know, you have to trust yourself and trust your gut. And that is part of why we're here today again, is to show you and tell you on, again, I can't read you for you. You are you. You are you. And at the end of the day, I did what these people asked. I gave them countless examples, let's call it, of what I would do, how I would approach this station, the effort and the energy that I put behind me, and not my acting, but my, you know, my enthusiasm. I'm a right now kind of guy. I live in the moment. I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of heart. So even on this particular station, the passion and these examples and stuff would come out. After going through the process of setting things up, you know, trying to finalize everything, we came to a finalization. Things were all fine and dandy. But I wanted to send out one final email to these individuals and these people. And unfortunately, this is where things turned south for me. It was about the ballpark of a month before my first episode was going to release. And with the joys of technology, I could do it here at home. They were based out of another place, not local from here, several thousands of miles away. But with technology, it would almost sound like I would be doing it from the physical studio. But unfortunately, I didn't go along with that. And because of that,
We'll be back after a quick break.
Don't forget to follow us on all the platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Music. Thank you for listening to the show.
Let's go back real quick so I don't confuse you. So I sent them a particular email of asking them about 7 different questions that in our final, I guess, like Skype or I think it was like a Discord call or something that we had. They didn't get answered. Even in that particular Discord call, I kind of felt some weird kind of pressure. And again, I'm all for pressure. I'm all for deadlines. I'm all for, you know, put the pressure on me. I'm that kind of guy. I can battle through it. I can get through it. But it was just a really kind of awkward vibe, awkward pressure, awkward, you know, you feel cornered. Again, I won't go into details about the call, what I felt, even though I could, because in this instance, I'm really just voicing my own thoughts and my opinions. But for the end of the day, it's all about you and knowing your gut and just really trusting it. And sometimes, a lot of times, that's hard for people to do. I understand that. But I am ultimately grateful and happy that I went with my gut in this situation. And so real quick, before I continue to ramble and get this out of context, I asked this particular organization or business some really in-detailed questions via email. And this was like a month prior to my first release of this particular show or a thing I was going to do for them. And it was just something to me where I would expect, especially, you know, sending this email with a month before my first episode. I waited about 2 weeks to reply to the message that I had emailed out. I said, is anyone there? Did you get my message? Can I proceed with the questions that I asked? Are we okay to move on? No response. And it became about 2 weeks before I was supposed to send over my first episode for them to edit, for them to do what they were going to do before placing it to be scheduled and aired on their station, and which at the time, if not still, gets branched all over the world. And ultimately, before I had sent off the final episode for that particular first week, I ultimately just made the ultimate decision that it wasn't for me. Not that it wasn't for me, not that I was not prepared, because I was ultimately more prepared than I think than most of everything in my life. I went over the episode several times. I critiqued it to a T. I think that it was going to sound great. I think that it was going to be great. I think that it could have kicked it off. But with lack of communication and some other concerns, I did not proceed. I reached back out to them, and I simply said, unfortunately, at the time, I just don't think that this is the right thing for me to do at the time. Maybe when things feel or potentially could get better, we could revisit the situation. Ultimately, their studio manager reached out to me, and gave me the communication at the time that I was looking for. But the particular communication and questions I want answered, I went directly to what I would assumed would be more of a professional owner, and I was gladly mistaken that as I went with my gut, and they didn't respond, and they didn't do what I felt that they were going to do in a timely fashion, and they were pretty easy questions. They were pretty yes or no, and again, ultimately, at the end of the day, I understand people have other lives, people have all these other things to do, but if you are seeking people to represent you, represent your station, put a good model on for you, because at the end of the day, yes, as much as this would have helped me improve, helped me continue to get my voice out there as far as what they were looking for, I am, in a sense, doing everything to make them look good, make their logo look good, make their brand look good, stuff like that. So, yes, as much as I'm doing it for myself, I'm actually pushing them, pushing their radio station. I'm not really pushing for myself. I'm making them look better than me. And at the end of the day, I just didn't feel good about it. I made the ultimate decision not to continue with it. I ended up backing out. And it's funny because, and this is where it plays a big role of just going with your gut, trusting your gut, is about 3 weeks after that, maybe 4, maybe more, close to 2 months. I'm not really sure. I lost track of time. I get a random message from some in particular individual saying that they want to speak again, and me and this individual never ever lost contact. We always, I guess, stayed true to each other. We were, internet friends. We met online as far as communicating. They reached out to me. They thought this was a good decision because they thought very highly of this individual and this station, which is fine, young and, biddable. And they were in a moment, and they saw the light, but they didn't see the tunnel that was going to crash. Ultimately, I am very thankful that this person reached back out to me. We had a very deep discussion of the do's and the don'ts and the uglies and the bads, and it was ultimately one of the best conversations I have had humanly possible with an individual that was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I pushed so hard. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the place that we will not mention or discuss, let them go, bullied them, all kinds of different things. Again, I will keep that to a minimum because they are not here to speak about that for themselves. So I will leave that out of it. But I am just glad, again, I went with my gut. I just can't fathom if I would have put all that time, put all the effort in these episodes, and basically at the end of the day, they would have been wasted. Don't get me wrong, it would have been great content for a year. But with that being said, I would have had to deeply edit a lot of it because it would have said their names. It would have had their, soundtracks behind it, stuff like that. So I am just ultimately glad. Another thing in my life that I just went with my gut in that situation. And like I said previous, and I know it sounds like more of a rant, I just applaud and really deeply appreciate the fact of the friendship that me and the other individual that we had that valuable conversation. I will say, to wrap this up though, after having that deep conversation with that individual, nothing has been in stone yet. Everything is in motion. There is a potential possibility I will be put on or have another opportunity to be put on a particular platform. We don't have any of those details as of yet. So continue to listen for that. I will continue to keep you guys appraised where my future holds. We're in the works of doing our own thing, or I should say their own thing, because it's not really my thing. I want to make sure that this individual understands and knows that I would be willing to help them in any fashion possible, due to the fact that they were true to who they said they were. They never let the best of their own emotions get in the way of a true valued friendship, and I still very strongly am grateful for this human individual, because they are the ultimate reason why the Inner Champion podcast is what the Inner Champion podcast is today. And at the current time, I will say, when I found this individual, they might not understand the fact of internally they saved my life, because at the time I was in a very, very dark place. I wasn't thinking straight. I wasn't comprehending a lot of things. And it just really, I played this individual's mental health episode 5, 6, 7 times. I don't know, 8 times maybe. And it just resonated with my brain. It created a new spark in my brain to just push myself, let the evil be the evil. And one of the biggest words, and they know this, that really hit home for me was continue to be a badass. They actually said be a badass bitch. I'll just be honest with you. And for whatever reason, that particular line I played over and over and over and over in my head. And I don't know what the name of that episode is. Maybe if I get it, I'll do a whole episode of my darkest times and my darkest places or something like that. And we'll just talk about it in more detail. But I just really want to give it up for that person. Really, to this day, I can't thank them enough. I can't ever repay them enough. I really can't. And I'm just really eternally grateful for crossing the path that I did with a simple podcast, a simple, hey, let's scroll and see what's out there for mental health or something. This doesn't go that therapy's not the right decision. Therapy's not, but at the time, it found me. I found it. I don't know. Scrolling does a lot of great things sometimes. And I think we've been ultimately connected ever since. And behind the scenes, they helped me do this. They helped me set everything up. They helped me put things together to be in this position. They gave me all the tips, all the tricks on how to operate my own podcast, from the start to the finish, from the core. And I'm here today because of them, and they don't understand that, and I don't think that they will ever quite deeply understand how well that simple episode did for me. And I just hope one of my episodes, maybe not be able to save your life, but maybe give you insight before you get into something, or if you're into something, how to get through it, how to get out of the ultimate issue or problem. As I've said before, ultimately these episodes are positive for the most part. They're motivational for the most part. I want to push you guys to be great. I want you guys to be at your ultimate best. I want one of these episodes to hit home for someone and ultimately reach out to me in an email, and let's talk about it of why. Again, like I've mentioned before in episodes past, of if you ever want to be on an episode, or again, like I've said before, too, at the same time, if you ever have the time to follow us on all of our social media platforms, everything is Inner Champions Podcast. That is for Instagram, that is for Facebook, and for the Inner Champions Podcast. I have not wanted to decide to start a TikTok or any other platforms, but please do me a huge favor if you possibly can. Follow us on Instagram. I'm really trying to get that to spark, trying to get that to grow. I think finally we're up to 64 followers. I'd love to see that in the near hundreds in the future. And you'll see episodes, and I'm going to start posting a lot of mental highlights or different motivational things that follow suit with this podcast, and kind of my, just, I guess, ultimate vision or things like that. But anyway, thank you for listening to this long breath episode. We'll catch you on the next one. I'm looking forward to making more current episodes. All of the other episodes that you're going to hear too from this point will be in 2026. So, but with that, I think that I've created a good level of content to keep you guys going now for every Tuesday instead of every other Tuesday. And I'm very, very humbled and excited about that. So again, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one, Inner Champions Podcast, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.